These are quadratic form problems in section 8.4. You are going to factor these and solve. There's up to 4 answers. So problem number 7, you want to factor this. X times x squared times x squared is x to the 4th. And what two numbers multiply to give you 9 but add to be negative 10, so that would be negative 9 and negative 1. And what you're going to do is set each of these equal to 0, so x squared minus 9 equals 0, and x squared minus 1 equals 0. So now each of these little ones are like section 8.1. Add 9, and then root each side, so plus or minus 3, add 1, square root both sides. Number 8, same thing, 2 sets of parentheses, break up x squared, or x to the 4th is x squared. What two numbers multiply to give you positive 4 but add to be negative 5? Set each of these equal to 0. Add 4, square root both sides. Add 1, square root both sides. Don't forget, plus or minus. And number 9, you're going to, what two numbers multiply to give you x to the 4th? It'd be x squared. And what two numbers multiply to give you 36 but add to be 13? That would be 9 times 4. So when you set each of these equal to 0, when you subtract 9 and square root both sides, you're just going to get an I value. So it's plus or minus 3i. And then for this one, subtract 4, square root both sides, and you're going to get plus or minus 2i. Plus or minus 2i. Okay, these back problems are the same. You're going to want to get these set equal to 0. So how are you going to factor this next problem? I believe that's a minus sign right there. So is it factorable by 3d squared and 4 and 1? I don't think that one works. How about negative 2? Nope. So this one you're going to have to do a little checking. So now what you could do, if you're not sure, because there's different combinations, you can do 9 and 1 and 1 and 4. Now that's going to give you 36 and 1. That's not going to work. What about if I put a 4 here and a 1 here? Will that work? And that will work. So I'm going to factor this using my guess and check method. Now the thing is I want to make sure my signs are right. So they both have to be negative because negative 9 minus 4 is negative 13. So now when I set each of these equal to 0, I have 9d squared minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 and divide by 9. So you get 4 ninths. And then when you square root both sides, you get d is equal to plus or minus 2/3 for that side. And for this side is just plus or minus 1. Add 1. Because you're taking the square root of both sides, so it's plus or minus 1. Number 17, we're going to add 15. factor. What two numbers multiply to give you 15 but add to be negative 8? That would be negative 3 and negative 5. So we're going to set each of these equal to 0. Add 3. Square root both sides. Add 5. Root both sides. And you're done. And the last one, number 18, P. First we want to set it equal to 0. And then factor this. So what two numbers multiply to give you 12? Well, we have 6 and 2, so it would be negative 6 and negative 2. That works. So when you set each of these equal to 0 and then take the square root of both sides, add 6 and square root. Add 2, square root. Okay, the next set of problems I would like to do are 49, 50, and 51 with fractional exponents. So what you have to do is factor these as x. First of all, get it set equal to 0. Then what you're going to do is factor what times what is x to the 2/3. They'd be x to the 1/3 times x to the 1/3. Because when bases are the same, what you're going to do is you're adding these exponents. So 1/3 and 1/3 is 2/3. Now this is the easy part. What two numbers multiply to give you 3, but add to be negative 4. So that would be negative 3 times negative 1. Now what you're going to do is set each of these x to the 1/3 minus 3. Set that equal to 0 and solve for x. And you're also going to set x to the 1/3 minus 1 equal to 0. So add 3. And now you're going to cube raised to the 3rd both sides. So in other words, x is equal to 27, because 3 cubed is 27. Same with this, add 1. And then cube both sides, and x is still 1. Number 50, get everything on one side, x to the 2/3 minus 3, x to the 1/3 minus 4, set it equal to 0. Factor x to the 1/3, x to the 1/3. What two numbers multiply to give you negative 4 but add to be negative 3? It would be negative 4 and 1. So we're going to set each of these equal to 0. Add 4. And now you're going to cube both sides. So 4 times 4 is 16, and 16 times 4 is 64. And we have x to the 1/3 equals negative 1 for this side. And if you were to cube both sides, x is equal to negative 1. Last one, b to the 2/3. So b to the 1/3, b to the 1/3. What two numbers multiply to give you 18 but add to be negative 9? It would be negative 6 and negative 3. set each of these equal to 0. Add 6. Cube 6. So 6 raised to the 3rd power is equal to 216. And we're going to take b to the 1/3 and swing it to the other side. Whoops, equals 3. So this on the other side becomes a positive 3. Cube both sides, so b becomes 27. And I'm going to stop there on 8.4.